Alpha 10, what is your emergency? The voice was male and deep, and he breathed heavily into the receiver. Someone's gonna get murdered. What is the location of your emergency? 1417 Crestview Circle. That's my address, I corrected him. My immediate reaction was to think he was mistaken. I know, the voice agreed, and then the line went dead. This was the first recorded instance in our area of a dispatcher being threatened. In any emergency call, the line is traced. When tracing a call, first the signal connects to the nearest cell tower and that tower connects to the satellite, which then gives us a specific GPS coordinate within maybe 40 feet of the caller. Unfortunately, the satellite never had enough time to get a pinpoint of the location, so we only know that the cell tower ping for the call was made within 2.1 mile radius that included my house. So it was close, but then again, most of my town fit within the radius. It could have come from anywhere local, even the dispatch call center. The number itself was although a Verizon carrier, but a rep for Verizon told us the number had been defunct for some time, which was all they would tell us. Verizon wasn't even legally obligated to release that much, as no real crime was committed, and the call could have been constructed as a mistake. When it didn't happen again, the police were forced to write it off as a prank, since they had no other options. Can't chase the sound of a voice, they told me. Surprisingly, in the month after the ominous call, life became quasi normal. There were no further police interruptions, wild threats, decomposing bodies, parts, or emancipated victims. My shifts as dispatch are in 3 12-hour days followed by 4 days off, which can feel like forever sometimes, especially if you are alone in a 2-story, mostly vacant, previously horrifying suburban house. To fill my spare time, I started driving for Uber to get out of the house as well as make some money on the side. Little by little, piece by piece, I used the extra cash to fill my house with more furniture, more art, more flourishes, anything to make it more welcoming. I got side tables and 2 couches from Goodwill, ordered framed posters of my favorite movies, vases with fake flowers, a scratched up flat screen from a shady person on Craigslist, and so on. And as usual, I would meet women off an online dating site. There is a bar near my house called Rex's, the only bar to still have Pantera on the jukebox, and it was the perfect place to meet new people, always half full and quietish before 9 p.m. Then all hell would break loose and the heavy metal would bear, and it made a good excuse to leave. Some nights it didn't work out, other nights did, and my date would come home with me for the night. This was how I met Kay. The day started with a swipe right on a beautiful dark-haired woman. A conversation followed which led to an exchange of phone numbers, further conversation and plans to meet up at Rex's. She was early and smelled of licorice. I was timid with a sense of humor. Things were going well until Rex's decided to blast their heavy metal early, around 7 p.m. on a day when the sun didn't set until 8:30 p.m. I invited her back to my house as went my routine, but she battled me off and instead I walked her home at the sunset. It was nice, for lack of a better word, not world-changing or explosive or dramatic, not a hilarious meet cute we could tell as an anecdote at parties. It was different, at least for me. The evening was pleasant, quiet, and the conversation was organic. We weren't trying to impress or judge. We were just talking. She was sweet and inquisitive, and something about her made me more honest and forthright than normal. I'm not a dishonest person, but I tend to be guarded, especially against people I've just met. But with her, it was just easier. I didn't, however, mention a single goddamn fact about my house yet. That's not first day material, no matter how relaxed the conversation. And the night ended with a peck on her cheek. My Kay. And I must breathe a deep, sorrowful sigh as we head into the dark territory of this story, which began on the night of our third date after she finally agreed to come over and watch a movie. I had told her the stories about the house on the second date, which it had been confiscated by police and the evidence that had been found after I moved in, telling her about the woman with the missing arm who seemingly appeared out of thin air. I spared the grisly details, but could point across that my house didn't exactly have a normal history. Kay wasn't really bothered by it, to my surprise. In fact, the more I told her, the more interested she became, to the point that I eventually politely requested we talk about something else, since it all still made me a bit queasy and nervous. But once she came over and we got comfortable on the living room couch, the conversation about the house resumed. Do you ever think your house is haunted? Because of all the bad juju? Kay asked before I could even turn the television on. Her voice was soft and a bit high-pitched, like it might come from someone extra tiny. It was cute and daring. I could have listened to her talks for hours. She was the opposite of the voice that threatened me, and like that voice, I can still hear her in my dreams. Bad juju? Is that the technical term? And what should we watch? I replied, trying to Netflix my way out of the situation. Whatever you want, Kay dismissively answered, knowing full well before returning to the subject. Like, did you ever wonder if maybe it isn't the person doing this awful stuff? Maybe the bad people did awful thing here and now the house is haunted. The house is not haunted. If anything, it's evil. My answer had been an attempt to humor, but the though made Kay's eyes lit up and then the house creaked. What was that? She gasped, more hopeful and curious than afraid. I explained to her that the house was always making noises like that, and even though it still creeped me out, I had come to accept that it was normal. Houses creak, pipes bustle, windows rattle, and this house had seen its share of issues and rebuilding, which only added to it. The house creaked again, a slowly short rrrr. Kay looked me dead in the eyes. My parents owned a ranch house and it was all good, and I never heard any sounds like that. My face turned a slightly shade of pale. A slow smile crossed Kay's lips. Wait, do you think there could be pound of marijuana in the walls? No, I shook my head. Police went through each and every wall from what they told me. Yeah, but they also missed a bunch of stuff, didn't they? She thought a second and then looked around the room, examining the walls. There's only one way to be certain. We are gonna need a hammer and a stethoscope. There's a long silent pause. You're joking, aren't you? I finally asked. Kay laughed, and so was her sense of humor. Then she asked me for a phone charger and yanked the remote from my hand and started flipping through the Netflix option. I had an extra charger in my bedroom, so I excused myself and ran up the stairs. The only to stop halfway. There were droplets of a black liquid on a star, and it wasn't until I wiped it with my sleeve, mistaking it for dirt, before I realized that A, it was still wet, and therefore fresh, and B, it was sticky, and C, it wasn't black but stained, my sleeve a dark brownish red. I tried to smell it but couldn't, and I didn't dare taste it. As I hadn't been upstairs in some time, I found it bizarre that I spilled something, and that's when I heard something so unsettling that my knees wobbled. A child's giggle, and then a shadow dashed into an empty row on the second floor. Fuck, I groaned, mortified. What's going on? Is it a ghost? Kate joked from the living room. In response, I exhaled for a minute until both lungs were bare pouches inside my rib cage and then some. My eyes had closed the millisecond I saw something move, but as there weren't any nearby windows to pull a Richie, no, that I wouldn't have exactly. I once again froze with a stupid fucking expression on my face. And this is the point where I tell you, I'm usually the guy screaming at the movie screen where Mr. or Mrs. Peripheral character is an idiot for investigating the struggle sound in the dark house. Sure, I could have just straight back down the stairs and grabbed Kay, or not even, and just run out of the house, but the dough didn't even occur to me. It seems silly, I understand, and I'm not some heroic guy. I don't claim to be brave, and my thought process was simple. There is a fucking child in my house? Is it a fucking ghost? No, it can't be. Ghosts aren't real. Ghosts aren't real. Ghosts totally aren't real, though, right? Ghosts aren't real. And maybe I misheard the sound. Maybe it was a cry that sounded like a giggle. Maybe someone else is up here. Wasn't it? Lord knows the last person was. There's a beautiful woman downstairs. I really, really, really like her. I really, really do. I really don't want to free her out. I also pussied out so hard last time, jumping out a window to avoid a disquiet woman that needed help. I just couldn't do it again, especially not if it turned out to be a child at this time. So I climbed the steps one by one, with only my right eye partly open, as it was farthest from the back room. Not that helped. I moved as if sneaking. Whoa, I sort of cuddled like an owl. My voice broke and I couldn't even really finish the sentence. Who is there? I reached the top of the stairs and stepped over another small pool of black liquid. It was sundown outside. There was still enough ambient light to see fairly well, but I turned on the hallway lights, and then felt like I had it when I noticed a tiny, unmistakably bloody hand print on the wall under the light switch. A handprint with only a thumb and two fingers spread wide apart. The red was still slowly dripping down the wall. One thing was certain. Whatever just created this handprint had only done in a few seconds earlier. Alpha 7468, what's your emergency? My co-worker friend answered when I called the dispatch line. I did immediately call police. Frenny, get any nearby officers to my house ASAP, I whispered. Who is this? She asked. And I could tell she was smiling. Then I was briefly muted as she radioed a nearby officer to ring my house. Brief history. Her and I had met at Rex's one night, and we had our own moment, and in the end, maybe she was trying to torture me a little. I would have deserved it if it was the case. I hung up the phone. I creeped from inside the empty room on the second floor. I quickly ducked into my bedroom and turned on the lights and grabbed the first thing I could, since I needed a weapon again. It was a goddamn pillow. This time, however, I was still so scared that I didn't let it go or throw it or anything. I just hooked it and went back into the hall and approached the back room. Each room I passed in the hallway and I turned the light on. The spare bedroom, the bathroom, the overhead bulb, and the closet. I left each door open and then I approached the door at the end. It was an empty room. I hadn't begun filling with furniture yet. Even the spare bedroom didn't have a bed. My breath was heavy as I rounded the door. The hallway light lit half the floor, and there, in a back corner, was a small dark figure. It was wearing a hoodie. I swear it, no bigger than 4 feet. But when I turned the light on, there was nothing. Just another pool of dark liquid in the back corner of an empty room. The poodle was still spitting out, though, as if it had just been made. Sirens in the distance. The screech of swearing tires in my neighborhood. The police were closing in. I moved to investigate the puddle in the back corner as the police pulled up on my lawn. And then they got a familiar sight. But this time, I swear, something fucking pushed me out a window. And just before it giggled.